So you had the LA premiere last night.
Yeah.
So you have, what's that like? Is it like you're seeing all your old friends again, or saying goodbye to them again?
Do you know what? We only finished this one, I think it was this summer, because we had to go back for the reshoot. So there's not that much distance between the end of this film and it having been premiered. So there's a dual sense of finality in some aspects of a film when you go to a premiere. For me, anyway, you meet everybody and you sort of catch up, and then it's work orientated, but there's a certain level of excitement that comes with that. And with this one, because we've been through so much together, I hadn't seen the film until last night as well. So
Wow.
yeah, because I'm working as well on something at home.
Is that taboo?
Yeah, with that. Yeah.
I cannot wait.
I'm really excited about
Are
it.
we going to see it here in this country?
Yeah, it's with FX here.
Cool.
So it's BBC and FX, and it's kind of interesting because we've got me, my father, and Steve Knight. We have a story which we pitched them, and what we're shooting with Christopher Nyholm now is not quite the same as what we pitched them, but it's taken on this organic development, which is exciting. It's going down.
So you have some real creative, collaborative involvement in this.
And once you start the cameras running, you start to see that what you have there and how it can, it's not exactly what we set out to do in the first place, but that was a good jumping off place. So, it's just become this other thing, which is fantastic and exciting. Which is for me. It's the first time I've ever worn a sort of producer's hat, and I find the difficult thing about that is that I don't have anybody to rail against in any way, shape, or form. Like normally a good executive production council provides me with a ball to bounce my tennis ball, like a wall to bounce my tennis ball against, and complain about certain things or facilities or assets that we may or may not have, or how things could be done better if I were in this situation. Now I'm in that situation. It's quite humbling. Because I have to moan at myself. So.
Well, my question there would be, who did you rail against when you were freezing your ass off?
This one? Well, we had a lot of comms issues on this one. Logistically, this was, I think that the biggest, if you take away the obvious, a lot of attention is about the endurance of being in the snow and it being adverse conditions and harsh and a struggle and man and nature and it being a force of nature and uncomfortable and all the stuff the actors went through. And actually, that's nonsense. That wasn't the case whatsoever. Yeah, it was cold in Calgary, but that's common sense. It gets cold there. We knew that going in.
And cold helps you in some way, right? In terms of your performance.
To a degree. To a degree it's going to enhance certain levels of, if you're living in if you're doing a movie about a hostile sort of environment, and the environment is a character, then of course it's going to inform that rather than a soundstage would, or very clever design or CGI, absolutely. Essentially, the Revenant, for me, one of the major characters is the landscape. That's it. And the Chivo beautifully captures that.
What fascinated me about the sorry to interrupt you, I'm
No.
so worried about the time. The idea that he's working close up.
Yeah, he's got a funny old lens, hasn't he, on that thing. I'm not much of a cinephile, so I can't explain technically what was going on there. But his camera's like, you can get these people. I don't really know how to explain it, but you probably know much more than I do. But you get this huge widescreen background shot, and then you've got a very serious close-up at the same time, and what he does with the camera is incredible. And also kind of distorts the face in a strange way, or the body in a way that it's very specific and unique to Chivo. Alejandro.
So
Fantastic.
was it for you a case where you didn't necessarily know where the camera was going to be?
Yes and no. You knew where it was, but Alejandro had a process which was unusual for me. When I had to learn the language, where this was orthodox. If I was talking to somebody, I would be looking at them in the eyes, whereas and doing a scene as is. Whereas with Alejandro, he would maybe potentially in a situation ask me to stare over here and do my scene with another character who's standing here and talk back and forth, and then the camera would move off me onto this guy's face and then around, and it would look like we were looking at each So some things were a bit sort of unusual, and he said you'd have to trust me, and you couldn't see playback, so you didn't quite know what you were trusting or how that worked. But then later on, he started to see what he was doing by showing us some playback. The penny dropped, and I understood what he was doing. It's a purely technical filmmaker thing, whereas I'm just bog standard actor. It's like, well, I'm talking to this person, so why am I looking over here? This is common sense. But he deconstructed that.
So the guy you're playing, did he exist in the history the way Leo's character
Do you know what?
did?
I'm a bit naughty. I didn't do any research, so I finished Legend and I went straight onto this. I don't have time to grow a beard and turn up, get a wig on, and get up the mountain and open my mouth, and that was it. So what you see is what you get.
So why does Hugh Glass drive him so crazy? Because he's a racist?
Why does Hugh Glass drive him crazy? I don't know if Fitzgerald is a racist from the get-go, as in seems like a traumatic learned behaviour from something that's happened before, the deep mistrust of somebody, because he's scout. He's obviously had a backstory, so his vehement racism doesn't come from a place of spite and for unnecessary motives. Not my take on it anyway. There's something about it, much the same as so you see in Vietnam movies about the VC or Charlie, or with Sergeant Barnes or something. There's a distinct dislike for the enemy, which is specified in a slur or racist slur. But there's not a consummate racism in him. I don't think there's a terror, a fear of the First Nation male, and I think a deep distrust for anybody that's in bed or in clandestine with that, because it means that he's going to get killed again.
It's about
Tortured.
Survivor,
Yeah,
finally.
and I think somebody like Fitzgerald would choose the lowest common denominator to create provocation for anything that was made him uncomfortable. I think ultimately his best friend is himself.
So I'arritu let you run with that?
No, not initially. No, he was very controlling about absolutely everything, because that's his way. But that's one has to create trust. He'd ask for trust, but the trust has to be earned, and that was that was an interesting bridge to get over, because when you're playing someone like Fitz, you have to feel confident to take some risks and make some bigger choices to hold on to build an arc over however many months you're playing the character. And if he holds on to the character for too long, then I'm redundant. I might be there, you know what I mean? Because if I have to do everything that he's saying, then it will never get to my bones or my heart or my soul. Essentially, I can't ground the character if the character belongs entirely in Alejandro's head. So there was a certain wrangling whilst he learned to trust me, I assume, whereby I could have Fitz to portray him for him, but I don't think he actually trusted any of us to play our characters the way that he saw them.
Wow.
Already. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we had to wrestle them off of him before
Leo
they allowed
too?
free flow. Pardon?
Leo also?
I don't know. I think this is largely unconscious behaviour that was going on. But he had so much to concentrate on, Alejandro. He must have seen everything, and we fill those spaces in his head. But some of us have to breathe essentially a life into that and have ownership. Otherwise, we don't know where we're standing. Especially if he's asking us to look over here or position ourselves in very unnatural positions, and then breathe life into something which is, to be fair, completely counterintuitive to anything that one would learn in an orthodox situation of acting, which he would call the tightrope, and it works on camera. As soon as it clicks together on camera, you can see what he's doing, and it's brilliant. But inside the driving seat of practically applying that within the ensemble, it's like learning Black Russian. It's confusing.
And where did
just
your...
the point that I didn't
keep
finish
going.
was the logistical. What made this
please.
an endurance piece for me, in my understanding of the Revenant, wasn't the nature of the harsh weather and stuff like that. That we were asked to do anything particularly difficult. What it was logistically to move a huge orchestration of team and departments around very hard to access areas of remote landscape. You know what I mean? On a daily basis in such a short space of time to catch up. I think we had an hour and a half worth of filming time a day, and we'd do 6 hours rehearsals. Then we'd shoot in natural light for an hour and a half a day, and then set up for the next day, because if we didn't get it on that day, we'd have to shoot it be the next day and constantly chase these scenes if we didn't get them in the can, and then move the entire operation, to somewhere which is 300 kilometers away with a 12-hour turnaround for 8 months, and we didn't know what we were shooting the next day until sometimes 6 or 7 hours before we had to turn up. The communication, logistical, was what made it an endurance piece in that hostile environment, because the weather dictated what we would shoot, and you couldn't control the weather.
So did you bond with each other under those conditions? You already knew Leo.
Yeah, I knew Leo. So there was no bonding that needed to be done in that aspect. We were all in it together, and it was a question of how are we going to get through it all? Because it's a huge beast, and when does it end? We called it the Forevenant because it was going on forever, never. And you were taking very small pieces of ground, and you didn't necessarily know what was being shot. You knew the scene you'd shot, but you didn't know what was being captured of the vision. So sometimes an actor can get playback. You can get a concept from the director of what's going on. But Givo and Alejandro initially were very private about how they contained their special, whatever their special was. It was like, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? And it came to a point where eventually, Leo sort of breached the playback area, and I've gotten as well to see what it was they were doing. And at that point, it was a lot easier to articulate. Because a picture can tell 1,000 stories, whereas dialogue, a lot gets lost in translation. So if you could see what it is that you wanted, you go, I've got it, okay, right, get it. And then it sped things up exponentially. For me, anyway.
I can totally understand how unsettling that would be. How did you come up with the accent?
I don't know, it just
You just did it.
Yeah. But yeah, it just turned up. I quite liked it. I just thought it sounded kind of cool.
It did. It did.
I'll go with that. And I love Tom Berenger in Platoon, Sergeant Barnes. So I thought I wanted to get a little bit of him in there because he was a character that as I was growing up, I really sort of was drawn towards. I thought, I'd like to pay homage a bit to him. To be fair, that character. So there's a bit of him in there as well.
Well, the other thing I love is Legend.
Oh,
I am
a
huge. Oh my God! I've been pushing this since Toronto. I've been wanting to talk to you about that since Toronto, but you haven't been around. That looked like it was fun.
That was fun. That was 7 weeks we shot that.
Whew.
That was fun.
Whew.
I mean, this was fun. This was 8 months, and it was epic. And then you do something like Legend, which is like 7 weeks, and like dun, 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 dun. Very different type of film,
But you're also on your toes playing both of those characters.
Yeah.
And the difference between the two of them and the bond.
Yeah.
So just quickly, because they're going to drag us away, logistically, shooting with yourself in a scene, like in the bar when they're fighting?
Super easy.
But
complicated how do we do this? And then had to work out some basic admin. I don't think much has changed because we didn't have a lot of CGI and had much money. So it's very much sleight of hand and smoke and mirrors really, and split screens and tennis balls and earpieces, and used a lot of voice to interact with the two brothers to cross over, so you could create a sound clash, because I think your eyes pick up what you hear sometimes. So you'd see an argument like that, but if you took the sound off it, it wouldn't be kind of as pure, like the eye lines and all that, as when you add a voiceover over the top, and you could mute one character whilst the other one was talking, and then play back in the ear and then interrupt the other actor. So we'd play with the vocal dynamic, and once the penny dropped on, I could interrupt myself through dialogue. Then I can interact with the brothers a bit more. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I get it.
To try and blur that line between the same actor playing the same two different characters. That was what the challenge was. It was like, how can you blur that line as often as possible so it feels like they're two different people? So I really
They were
wanted to
both great and really fun to watch.
Oh,
And one was really sexy, and the other was really scary. And I thought Emily Browning did a great job too.
She's awesome. She's awesome.
I think she's going places, yeah?
Yeah, she's really special, Emily Browning. Really special.
All right, and then the other, of course, is Mad Max, which I'm sure I've been rooting for that all year long as well, and luckily it's coming around.
Yeah,
all the critics groups and all the awards groups are seeing the light.
That's great news, isn't it, for George? I'm so pleased for him, and Margaret as well. What George has done with the Fury Road was just fantastic. It was like a total renaissance of, of not just action movies, but like bringing Mad Max back and with all his toys out, and just such a massive explosion of Technicolor brilliance and orchestrated madness at its peak.
So my question for you is the scene when Furiosa there's one bullet left in the gun.
Oh yeah.
And you, Max, Mad Max,
I'd miss.
you pass it to her.
Yeah.
And you give it to her
Yeah.
to take the shot.
Because I'd miss.
Did you have any trouble with that?
No. The reality is I would miss. And you know it. And she wouldn't.
Because it's her gun.
I think if it was any gun, to be fair, it was just, I think, the great thing about Mad Max is he's real. He's not that confident. He's not that confident. He doesn't think he's going to make it. And if someone's got a better idea, you hand it over. If someone's better than you at something, the smart person hands it over on numerous occasions because he knows what he's good at and what he isn't.
Thank you.